Hi BookTube, I'm Lori. Welcome to my channel Books, Ink and Paper, or welcome back if you've been here before. I am so excited today because we're going to talk about books that will give you a cozy feel. So fall cozy reads, I guess, is what I'm going to call this. These are books that I have read that I just think are a lovely way to spend a cold, crisp fall night. And I can't wait to share them with you. So let's get started. Before we get started, I want you to make sure you have a cup of something warm. Today I have coffee in one of my Disney cups. Today is the day that Disney streaming begins on Disney Plus, so I need to get on that too. A great cozy blanket. We just recently got this one. It is so soft and textured and fluffy. I love it, and I love reading with it. My cat also loves when I read with it, so that works out really, really well. Even though I have coffee in my cup today, when I sit down for a cozy fall reading session, I usually make a cup of tea. And so here are some of my favorites. I love Winter Spice by Twinings. This is an herbal caffeine-free tea, and it contains cloves, sweet apple, cinnamon, cardamom. It's just delicious during this time of year. Then, as you know from another video, I love Twinings buttermint tea. I really should be sponsored by Twinings, shouldn't I? I think their buttermint tea is one of my favorite mint teas ever. It is just such a rich and buttery taste. Delightful. And then if it's right before bed and I'm okay with falling asleep shortly, I love the Twinings Nightly Calm blend. I have used a variety of nighttime teas in my quest to get a good night's sleep, but Nightly Calm is, right now anyway, my favorite. In addition to the blanket and the tea, I always put a candle on for my reading sessions. This is a recent Bath and Body Works purchase, but I have several of these, and so I just make sure that I set up my space so that I have my candle in a safe place, my teacup, and my blanket so that I'm ready. And tonight it will be freezing here, so it's going to be a perfect night for a fall cozy read. I also think that setting up your space intentionally for a fall cozy read is just delightful, and we'll talk about why that might be in just a minute. But I think when I pull out the tea and the candle and the blanket and the book that I really am longing to read, it sets an intention for me that, hey, this is my space, this is my self-care time, this is the time that my brain and I are going to agree to read. So one of the first books I love to read this time of year is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I got this copy from my friend Sarah at Sarah's Nightstand. She was so sweet to send this to me, congratulating me for starting my BookTube channel. But what a great copy this is. I love these penguin puffin books with the naked cover, but just such great artwork on that cover. Look, my nails almost match. My nails do match. I love Little Women. I was gifted Little Women one Christmas when I was 9 years old and by my cousin, and it remains one of my favorites. It's a great cozy read. If you've never read it before, I encourage you to do so. But it really is a cozy fall read or cozy winter read because it does go through several seasons with the Marsh Girls, but Jo reads in the turret in her bedroom, or in the attic actually, in the window, and I remember just feeling like, oh my gosh, what a great place to read and to curl up and to just stay for hours and hours and hours. So classic literature piece that follows four sisters and their lives as they grow up and as they go through trials and situations that are very, very difficult and very, very delightful. And I just love to take a look at Little Women on a really cold night. Another fall read that I love is Harry Potter, any of the Harry Potter books, but I do love to read all of these in this fall winter season. This is actually the illustrated copy that's illustrated by Jim Kay. They're on the fourth one now, I think. So one comes out generally every year. I think they skipped a year last year, or maybe I skipped a year, I don't know. But I love these copies. The illustrations are fantastic. I also hear some people actually read this copy while listening to the audiobook, which is fun. So I think that would be a great night to spend in a cozy way on a cold night. I can't imagine anything better than that. One of my favorite rereads that puts me in the mood this time of year is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I have read this many, many times. It is a little creepy. It is a little mystery, but Daphne du Maurier does a great job of putting you into this place, into Manderley, which is this is really my favorite opening sentence in a book too. If you've never read the first sentence of this book, it is, "Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again." So the house is as much a character as the people. It is a twisty, tangly thriller kind of story about a woman who falls in love with a man and is taken to Manderley to live with him after they're married, and discovers there's some secrets in the house and there's some things that happened, and she's really curious and then becomes a little bit panicked by not knowing what happened to his first wife, Rebecca. What's also interesting to me is that this one continues to be a book that people love to read over and over again. There's a lot of people who reread Daphne du Maurier, and I think they're somewhat of a classic, timeless classic for a lot of people. So some other books I love, and this is a very long series during fall, are the Karon, I think it's Karon, books, the series that's set in Mitford, and these are very nice and shiny. These are the second and third in the series. I've only read two. I read the first one, and then I read one out of order, and I decided that was not a good idea, so I'm going to go back and start and kind of get them in order. They follow a priest. I think he's an Episcopal priest, but don't quote me on that, in a small town called Mitford, and his parish and the people that are in his church and some of the things that happen to them. They're sweet. They're, I would consider them probably Christian fiction. I don't know if they've been categorized as same, but they're just lovely and cozy and fun, and I love the characters so much. Anne of Green Gables is another series that I love to read in the fall. Now, there are 10 books in this series altogether by L. Maud Montgomery. What I love about Anne of Green Gables is that they follow her character through her young adult life all the way into her adult life. Are some of them as good as others? Probably not. Have I read all of them? No. But I do adore Anne, and I adore this story of her life where she finds herself living with this couple in Green Gables, and how much they care for her and how much she learns about herself and others and trusts in the world when she had kind of a rocky, traumatic start to life. I will always adore the adaptation that was done years ago, and I'll talk about that maybe in a separate video, because I do think next year one of my goals is to read all of the Anne series in order again and to complete them all this time. So I won't go into too much detail, but Anne of Green Gables is a lovely story for young adults as well as grown-ups too. The next books that I love, and the first one in this series that I read, is Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. I think she does a good job of creating a cozy read in different seasons of life, but Garden Spells for me is particularly a fall read. I read Lost Lake not too long ago. That's definitely a summer read, so let's not talk about that one. Let's just talk about this first one in the Waverly Family series. This follows a few women, one who lives in this house that she inherited in North Carolina, and her daughter who comes back to live with her through some circumstances that led her to come back with her child, and how they sort of reunite and begin to live together and coexist together in this community that they have been in as a family for a long, long time. It's just lovely. I remember there's an apple tree, and there's lots of beautiful outdoor experiences with the daughter and the mom as well as the granddaughter, and um, I just adore it, and I could reread this again and again too. It's a great book club pick if you have a book club and you haven't taken a look at it yet. It is a very traditional book club pick. A lot of people read Sarah Addison Allen's books for that purpose. 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene. Hanff is one of my favorite nonfiction cozy fall reads. Published in 1970, this really, though, is considered a classic nonfiction work. And it's kind of, I would say, unknown by a lot of people, but I love it. It's an epistolary novel featuring letters that Helene began to write right after the war from New York City to a bookstore located on 84 Charing Road in England, in London, looking for a particular edition of a book that she was fond of, and unable to find it in New York, she reached across the pond to a bookseller. Frank, I think his name was, who is the kind of the guy who answers the mail, if you will, began a correspondence with Helene that lasted for years and actually grew to become friends with her through these letters, and other people in the bookstore are affected by their relationship as it grows, and it's just so lovely and beautiful. Honestly, you could read it in an hour or two. You could definitely read it in one night. It's very, very small. I don't own 84 Charing Cross Road, and it is one of my top 5 books I've read, I think, of all time. It's really that special to me, and I have read it and laughed and cried, and I think it's underrated, totally underrated. So if you've never taken a look at 84 Charing Cross Road, I encourage you to do so. And I need this book in my stacks. I think it's on my Christmas list, but I need to bump it up or just buy it myself. I don't know, but it is fantastic. Number 8, The Little Book of Hygge, and I cannot pronounce this author's name, so I won't even try. I read last year, I think, and it is also nonfiction. It's about the Danish term hygge for something that we don't really have a word for, except it's kind of like cozy and comforting, creating a space and an attitude really around designing something that makes you happy and joyful and feel comfortable and warm and welcomed and all those things. The book spends some time describing hygge, why it's important, why Danish people who practice hygge, and they do as a country, are much happier than other countries. It talks a lot about the feelings that you get when you set an intention for hygge, what you want other people to experience when you have parties. It talks about creating a hygge basket for yourself. It's really all about great self-care, and it's fun. I listened to it, and I remember just feeling like it would be a great fall read. So I don't remember if I listened to it in the fall or not, but I think you would enjoy it if you chose to do so. The Last Anniversary by Liane Moriarty is one of my favorites by her, though it is not one of the most well-rated, I would say, across the board. It's a little more obscure, and one of her earlier novels. It follows the discovery of a baby at a neighbor's home by 2 women, sisters, and they take the baby in and raise her. And there is this sort of mystery around what happened to her parents and why she was left abandoned in this home. And they commemorate the discovery of this baby every year in a festival, and have created a museum in the home next door in her honor, if you will. So the book begins when Sophie inherits her aunt's house on Scribbly Island, which is where this discovery of the baby occurred, and she goes there to begin to live in the house and to connect with her aunts and her other family members, and the festival and all the things that happen as a result are just, to me, delightful. And it's a great family saga and a fun read for sure, with some depth. So it's yeah, I like it a lot. And the last author I recommend, the books that I love to read in the fall, are by MacNeil. So the first one I ever read is The Beach Street Knitting Society and Yarn Club. I got it at the end of the year. I got it at a bargain book bin at Barnes and Noble, and I just was, it just, I don't know, I loved the cover. I like to knit, although I'm crap at it and I don't do it consistently. And I loved it so much that I ended up getting all of her books. These are just a couple of them. This is another in this series about the knitting club, but she's her character is Jo Mackenzie, and she's a girl who moves from London to the country in, where does she move to? I'm not sure. Anyway, she moves to take over her beloved grandmother's wool shop, and she meets a bunch of people that have created a knitting group called Stitch and Bitch. And it was just hysterical. She's very funny. I have read a couple of her novels. One of them, the last one I read, I didn't love as much. I think it was called The Year of the Roses, but I love all of them a lot. And these are my favorites. And again, it's kind of cozy, you know, think about knitting and yarn, and what could you ask for in this time of year that would be better to create a cozy reading night? Now, maybe you're saying I could ask for a lot, but these are my recommendations for your fall cozy reads. And I hope you'll let me know if you decide you want to take a look at them. If you do, let me know how you like them. And if you've read them, I'd love to hear about that too. I have a weird hair situation today. The weather took a turn and it changes my hair situation every time it takes a turn. And it took me like a while to finish recording this video. So if the lighting looks different, it's because I had paused the recording at one point and then forgot to start it up again. All right, guys, thanks for joining me today. And I hope you will subscribe if you haven't already. Give it a thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with your friends and tell them about what you're hearing here, and recommend the channel to them if you would like. And as always, I hope you have a very, very happy, cozy reading night. Bye.